check my mic. I am live, but let's look at the mic settings. Do I have the good mic going? Edit name, headline, edit mic settings. It's too late. I can't edit the mic settings. I'm in it. I'm deep in it already. The live has started. Brap! We've started. We're going to begin in the traditional way of beginning these lives, which is to put something in my mouth, reducing the amount of talking I can do. That's the sound it makes for you on audio. What did Adam just put in his mouth? This is an exciting new segment that we're starting here at the live show. A lot of demand from viewers. Adam, we want to know what's getting put in your mouth, but we don't want to fully know. We want a bit of mystery. And so if you are listening from the comfort of your home, driving, what is getting put into Adam's mouth to start off the live show? We'll be doing this every live show. You can rely on that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to this exciting segment taking off. Okay. Let's just view these live streams, make sure that's all healthy. That's the part you got to do. And this is also, I know this is a really fun part for those viewing from home or listening after the fact. It's fun to hear someone do some tech, a little bit of tech support. Looks like everything's live and well. I mean, there's no comments. That's also a big issue, but that'll change. Starting a little late this morning. Oh, wrecking my mic too. Let's change that. That's nice. That's a good sound for people. We'll just probably leave that in, I think, Dave. We're just going to leave that into the podcast. It adds a layer of humanity, a layer of realism, I think, to the podcast if we have a loud, scratchy noise. And I'm excited to tell everyone that we've just gotten our first Facebook thumbs up emoji. That means that someone appreciates and supports me as a human being. So thank you for coming to this very exciting affirmation of me and my ego. We've got some topics today. I'm going to talk about what's going on in my life. I'm going to talk about, am I going to talk about, I think I'll probably talk a little bit about entrepreneurialism as a coach or a service-based professional. I think that'll have some value. I'm going to talk about when I was young and dumb. And as a friend of mine used to say, and full of cum. I'm still dumb. I'm less young, and I'm almost zero cum in me now. I'm going to talk about completing with your coach, working with the energy in the room, energy work. We've gotten our second Facebook thumbs up. Hey, Vera, nice to see you. Gonna talk about moving a project forward. Yes, I have an exciting segment today. It's been a while since we've been able to revisit this, and that is new approaches to pitching on LinkedIn. How are these clever marketers trying to trick me into giving them money? Which is really funny to me because, well, it's just weird to try to trick me into giving you money. That's a strange thing that these marketers do, but that's what's up. So we'll talk about that. And then we've got a bunch of topic suggestions from our good friend Svetlana, friend o the show. So we're going to jam on some of these. Being a clearing when there's too much to be with, staying focused on a personal vision and not being taken out by the world. Geez, these are good questions. I hope that someone here can answer them for me. I don't have a hope in hell. Okay. Let me just check in. Let me go deep in here and think to myself. Actually, first, I don't want to make sure. Do you guys do this where you mark as unread? Perfect. The way things go with all of these inboxes now is as soon as you click the message, it goes blank, like it stops being highlighted. And so then you're left with a good morning, Tommy. Your inbox in like LinkedIn or whatever, it's very hard to keep track of because it's just 6 billion messages. So I have to manage all of I have to make sure I mark it unread, because if I don't do that, I will never respond to that message. I will immediately forget about it. Okay, so let's start. What the heck has Adam been up to? Last week we had no live show as I was away for my annual trip with the Original Men's Club. And the Original Men's Club is a group of about 5, myself and maybe 5 other guys. It began because we'd been friends for a very, very long time, and we would get together and we would go drink beers, and we decided to call that Men's Club, which I think was a pretty clever naming tool. And then in the intervening years, we drink less beer, we play more Magic the Gathering, we hang out, and we do nerdy stuff. And so, people get older, they have kids, we all have busy lives with lots of travel and stuff, but we always make time every year to go away once annually to somewhere locally here on the West Coast. So last Friday, I was away in an area called Shawnigan Lake. If you're from around here, it's very beautiful. It rained a good chunk of the weekend, which is ideal because what we want to do when we go on these trips is play a lot of nerdy card games indoors. We are the indoor kids. So we did that. Very good time. I'm coming back fully recharged. I've got my nerd battery fully boosted up, and now I'm ready to kick it. I don't think there's too much else to share. Can't think of a lot that's been going on outside of that. I'm kind of in a nice lull. There's been a fair bit of travel on the front side. We had the intensive, and then I was down in Mexico, and now we're into a nice meaty part of the fall where I don't have much travel planned, and we can just stay inside, and the weather is very conducive to like doing writing and stuff like that. So it always feels really good. Everyone on the video, you can tell it's haircut day. So after this, I'm going to go get a haircut because my hair is getting crazy. And it's giving I noticed it's giving my camera problems. It's like fuzzing out different parts. The camera is like that. Oh, I think that's part of the background, not part of actually Adam's head. Oh, this is something that I wanted to show. So this is from my dear friend Toku. Toku and I met when we did some work in a group led by a man called Rich Litvin. We didn't stick around too long in that group, but we became very good friends. And to Toku's great credit, Toku and I have talked on the phone pretty much once a week for the last maybe almost 10 years. And when I say to Toku's great credit, what I mean is that that happens because Toku was a stand for us to have that friendship. He was like, I want to have friendship with you. And so can we set something up? And oftentimes I'll get, maybe it seems like a little less these days, but people they'll like, my content. They'll like my energy, my vibe, my fun, easy, laid back tendencies, my cool voice tricks and modulations that I do, the way I put things in my mouth so courageously on camera and on mic. Again, what is that sound? It's so mysterious. So anyhow, people will want to be around me, but they aren't really willing to commit much to make that happen. And I have this friend, more of an acquaintance named Bob Conlon. Some of you watching or listening may be aware of him. And Bob did the same training I did. He led that work for a number of years. And probably about 8 years back now, maybe it was near the start of COVID, maybe 6 years back, he and his wife, they were set to have a kid. And so Bob and I had an appointment set up. We were going to get on the phone and chat and see about getting together. And something very bad happened for his wife, who was, I think, maybe 6 months pregnant, which is that I think, I'll probably get it wrong, but something to the effect of her water broke very, very prematurely. So all of what held the baby, all of that broke, no longer protected, very dire. And she was rushed to the hospital, and that became kind of their life for about 3 to 4 months was, can we support our child who was born to be named Forrest? So could they support Forrest through this really dramatic event to be born and to live and all of that? And so Bob, quite an inspiring story, he would go and he would hang outside the hotel room and he'd hold up signs for his wife, really, really beautiful and inspiring what he got up to. And I promise it's going to come back to my friend Toku. But uh, what happened was Bob's story. It was one of those stories that gets picked up everywhere. You know, every single morning news program hears about this guy who's hanging outside his wife's hotel room and holding up signs and eating lunch with her, even though he can't be with her and she's 4 stories above. He's got a little camping chair set up on the ground below, and he's eating and holding signs saying, "I love you, we got this," and blah 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 blah. It, you know, got picked up on morning shows, but then like also in Japan and also here and also there, everywhere. And so that created a lot of fame. And I'm not saying that sort of like, wow, lucky him. I'm just acknowledging that came with the territory. And so Bob and I were talking years after this, you know, maybe 5 years or four, something, maybe not that long, maybe a couple of years after his child had been born. They'd moved through probably the most dramatic and traumatic aspects of it. And I was asking him, how was that for you? You know, like, I know you got a lot of press. Like, what was the experience? And he's a coach. And I was like, you know, did it create a lot of business? Did that provide some, at least some, I wasn't asking from a crass place, more just curious, like, did that provide a bit of financial security? You know, hey, I've got all of these people coming in. And what Bob said was, you know, it was sort of like, what tended to happen was there were a lot of people that wanted to be around me. They wanted to be in his field, but not so much anything else. And so this, especially if you really take on transformational work, one of the things that people will talk about is the more you transform, a couple of things happen. The more fully expressed you become. Second, the more, I think in line with that, the more authentic you become in your expression. Third, your authenticity and full expression is not done at the expense of a consideration of how it's going to impact around you. So that's distinct from the sort of people that are like, I'm a truth teller, or your opinion of me is no business of mine, and here's how I show up. And then they trounce all over your, you know, your garden. And they're like, well, it's not my fault. I'm just being me. You know, that's not very compelling. But as you deepen in transformational work, you become more and more able to simultaneously really be expressed as the joy and the light and the love and all of the play and everything that you are, and to do so in a way that continually creates more art with the world and those around you. And so that's very compelling. And finally, when we get to be around someone who's done a lot of transformational work, it doesn't matter if they're coaching us directly or leading us, just the act of being around these people is a transformational experience, because we notice their facility with situations that we don't have much facility with. You know, if I, and this will be very hard for you to imagine, but if I'm self-conscious, how could you imagine Adam being self-conscious? Adam's constantly self-conscious, by the way. If you imagine my own self-consciousness and my own need to be perfect and to not make mistakes and not look stupid because I can't bear the experience of being a disappointment, and then I'm hanging out with someone else and they make some big flub and someone's like, well, that was pretty stupid, wasn't it? And they just sort of laugh and are like, yeah, that was really dumb. I really bonered that up. There's a moment, an opportunity for transformation for me in that experience, because I witnessed them and I'm like, I'm feeling the discomfort that would be present for me empathetically over there. I'm like, oh, I can imagine being in this situation where I'm the one that bonered something up. I'm intentionally using that word and emphasizing it, people. I bonered something up, and I put myself in that guy's shoes. I'm like, oh God, I feel horrible. I know what this is like. I can't bear this. And then instead of it going the way it would go for me, this person just has the ability to smile and laugh and be joyous and find like love and play in that moment. That creates a transformation in me, because suddenly I see this opportunity for a different experience than the one that I've always lived out. So when people stay in this kind of work for a long time, they become very magnetic for all of these reasons I've mentioned, right? More fully expressed, more authentic, more able to calibrate and create art with the world around you in your authenticity and your expression, and you're transformational to be around. So that's what happened for Bob. Bob was deep in his work. People just wanted to be around him, and especially they see how inspiring he's being. I have now we are closing this cul-de-sac and coming back to where I started, which was Toku, because I want to introduce something that he has made called the Coach's Tarot. But I'm just going to give you a little more prefacing, I promise, just a tiny bit more before I do this, which is to speak to our friendship. I have a lot of people, less so these days, but still a lot, that want to be around me in some way. They'll reach out and be like, yeah, can we, I don't really want to hire you, but can we just like hang out? Or can we, like create a thing once a month where we blah, blah, blah. And my answer to that is always, yeah, sure, we can create something like that. But I'm really clear, I'm not going to generate that. I'm not going to be the one to put in the effort to call you week after week. And the reason for that is not arrogance. It's not that I feel I'm better than someone. It's that my life is full. It's very busy. And I put a lot of import on friends and social life and doing stuff that sources me. And I also hold the time that I get to spend by myself and my dogs and my video games and my Magic the Gathering cards, which you can see right there. Like that's a lot of boxes of nerdy stuff. I hold all that very, very precious. And so when someone says like, hey, let's just be friends, I just want to kind of hang out and stuff. What generally I find people are wanting is they want the benefit of a committed relationship without being willing to invest what that commitment calls for, what that commitment demands or asks of them. And, the thing is, I'm a yes, but they're going to have to make that effort. They're going to have to call me. They're going to have to pick up the phone. They're going to have to confront whatever shows up inside of them when they say, hey, it's Friday, Adam, can I call you? Let's jump on the phone. Can we talk? That's a cost we have to pay, because then we have to be with that part of ourselves. It's like, I'm a bother, I'm annoying. That cost is very, very important. And that's part of what comes along for the ride. And so when we want the benefits of some kind of committed relationship, we have to be willing to pay the costs. I'm going to make a note here because I want to talk more about costs in the spiritual world and in the world of addictions. Costs, spirituality, addictions. Oh, it's good stuff. Okay, now, after all of that prefacing, I can talk about The Coach's Tarot by Toku McCree. So Toku has been working on a project. He currently lives in Mexico City, such a worldly traveler. Many of you know Toku and probably love him. Some of you might think he's a real spark plug bulldog, and I think that that's an accurate estimation too. But Toku has this really beautiful ability to birth things into the world, to make things happen, and to express himself creatively. And so he started building this deck, which I'm showing you here, of tarot cards specifically for coaches. And each of these tarots is based on, I think he's got all of the, there's the traditional, suits, I think, or houses or whatever you call it in tarot or tarot. And so each of these cards has a suit. It's got an image, it's got a name that is not necessarily related to the traditional suits, right? So instead of the Empress or the Wheel or the Tower, we have the Sacred Masculine. This Sacred Masculine looks like he's about to powerbomb someone. Also, there's a bunch of, it looks like flow charts and, come on, camera, zoom in on me. There we go. Flow charts and some molecules and stuff. And also an arch. I think the arch represents like strength. Actually, I think I could get behind this Sacred Masculine. Power bombing people, drawn flow charts. Oh, all in a day's work. So each of these cards has art that Toku has created from, I think he told me, I was asking him, I think he took AI art and then combined them to create his own kind of vision. Here we've got Power, which looks like a lucha libre ready to, and then I think he's got, I can't remember the name of that stroke. That's a brush stroke in Zen, which represents sort of like the perfection and the imperfection. Let's just pull a few others. We've got, girl, you can claim it. Girl, you got to claim it. We've got like gratitude. What else do we got here? Oh, I would be pulling this card a lot. Righteousness. Yeah. Fuck y'all. I'm right. I got the righteousness card. I feel great. This is my attitude. we've got the breakdown. And then what else is quite cool is on the back of each of these cards is a set of questions specific to the card you've pulled. So if we pulled the breakdown, the questions are, what do you know isn't working? And what would it take to finally face it? Let's just pull a few more. Ending. That's kind of neat. It's like a big void with a little candle at the top. And what does the questions for ending say? What is ending? What do you need to grieve? What do you need to allow to die? So really, really cool concept. He's got a full deck, as you can see. I don't know. I mean, this would be a lot of work to put together. I don't know if I can do that type of work. Hell no, that's too much. And then he's gone and written this book, which you get with the deck, which includes sort of like, these are the cards, and then a description, as well as, the house that I guess it's called the house or the suit that is here. So, let's go to breakdown. Let's see if we can, actually, let's do Sacred Masculine, because I got that right here. And I'll read you the piece on it. So, Sacred Masculine, the question is, where are you avoiding or resisting structure? Look at my dog. You're not getting in here, Pongo. I intentionally put that cajon against that door so you can't get in. No, but Adam needs to know about me. Where are you avoiding or resisting structure? Pongo avoiding the structure of my door. And where could structure serve you? So that's the questions on the back of this card. And then if we go to the little pocket book, it says Sacred Masculine, and then I guess the card it represents from the traditional tarot deck is the Emperor. It says, growing up, structure meant less fun and freedom. We didn't like bedtime, homework, and cleaning our rooms. As a result, most of us developed a negative relationship with structure, one that has us feel like it's being imposed on us rather than serving us. Most of us have areas where we avoid or disempower the structure we create or are given. The Sacred Masculine offers its support so you can go from being held back by structure to being held up by it. It invites you to consider what might be possible if you embrace structure as support rather than limitation. So a cool little write-up to support your process. And then finally, he includes, it looks like six cards here that give you some ideas for how you can use these. So you can use some spreads, which is sort of like how a tarot reader would traditionally lay out the cards and then flip them over and be like, okay, this is the past, this represents the present, this represents the future, and blah, 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 blah. So if that sounds like something that's cool to you, I recommend you check it out. I don't think Toku's charging a lot. I believe this is a exclusive beta deck that I am getting to preview here. Exclusive beta deck. So I don't know when he'll have these out, but you should definitely check him out. His last name's McCree. Toku McCree. He sounds like that name sounds sort of like if I was watching Shanghai Noon and Jackie Chan came over to the West from Tibet in like a cowboy movie. He'd be like Toku McCree. He's the fastest draw in the West, and he's always meditating. Don't sneak up on him when he's meditating, or something dumb like that. So really, really cool project. Big thanks to Toku for sending it to me. Recommend you check that out if you like that sort of thing. I have a few thoughts on tarot in general that I'm going to share now. And one of the things I think is cool about things like this, I'll show another deck I have on my desk in a sec, is we can get very linear in our thinking, especially as time goes on. Hold on, I have to burp. Success. I'm going to have some coffee to celebrate. A magnificent burp, Adam. I'm going to check if anyone's written any comments. No comment there. No comment here. No comment here. No comments. So lonely. We can get very linear in our thinking, in our work, especially when we're urgent, especially when we have a path that we really feel we have to move along. Like when we get attached to a particular result. An attachment happens because we really want it. It happens because we have a lot of desire for it. It happens when we get excited about the possibility of something and we don't want to feel the heartbreak of not getting it. It happens when we are afraid of the result where we don't achieve what we want. So that's, like I'm scared of failing. Then we become attached to succeeding, blah, blah, blah. And so decks like this one can be really, really helpful to break us out of that, because it just gives us sort of a blue sky place to think about or approach a different frame for what we're up to. And of course, what's going to happen is we're going to take our circumstances and we're going to fit them into this new frame anyhow. And this is, some people hold that things like tarot or, like little objects of mystical totems, you could call it, that we have. Some people hold that those contain magical properties. And I have zero interest these days in disavowing people of that. For me, I'm going to filter everything going on in my life through whatever you put in front of me. So if I draw a tarot card that says like divine masculine, where are you not willing to empower structure? That question, I don't have it that the universe or that God was like, I'm bored today. What am I going to do? Let's give Adam a special tarot card to wake him up to the power of the Lord. I think it's just that, like, what this does is it provides us almost like a divining rod, a way to connect a bit into the moment. Every time you shuffle cards and draw a card, you're connecting with the moment on some level. There's a randomness. And I'll show you this other deck. I may have shown you this before. What is this deck called? Oh, it's called Threads of Fate Oracle cards. I'm not a big Oracle card dude guy. I am a big Things of Beauty guy, as you can tell from the decoration in the office behind me. I very much like beautiful things, and this deck of cards is very beautiful. And so usually what happens once a week maybe or so is I come into my office, I shuffle this deck of black Threads of Fate Oracle cards, and I draw one. And what do we have today? We have Ancestors. And that's all you get with one of these cards. It's got the same back across the deck. It's got this lovely rose gold kind of etching, I suppose. And then you get a card that says Ancestors. And I can read if I want more about the cards in this book they provide, but I don't usually do that. I'm more interested just in letting that word sit with me. And sort of like a context through which to filter, think about, feel into my day. So that's another way you can kind of use these. Kind of neat. It's kind of cool. Okay. Talked about that. Costs, spirituality, addictions. I'd love to hear from anyone. There's just a couple of people watching, but if you have any experience with this stuff in your own life, that would be kind of cool too. We can put as much or as little power into these items as we wish, and they will have as much or as little power as we are willing to give them. So it's kind of a funny thing. There was this story I read as a kid, and I think the Polar Express took this idea too. Like, in the Polar Express, the kids get like this magical Christmas bell, and only children can hear the ring. And you become an adult, and the ring grows fainter and fainter until you can't hear it anymore because you no longer believe in the magic, and it fades. And I've come to the conclusion for myself that is really how magic works. Like there was a period in my life where I would look at every single thing like this, these cards, it's fucking dumb. That's not how the world works. There's no energetic being guiding the cards that I draw and then imbuing them with some sort of magic, which then gives me exactly what I need. And therefore, because that was how I held it, there was no room for anything, no room for those cards to have any value or anything. And as I deepened into this work and found that I wanted to create a deeper relationship with spirit, and then did, it allowed more spaciousness to see sort of like, well, the power that this deck has is the power I imbue it. And so I can look at this card and say, Ancestors are a bunch of fucking bullshit. That's the end of that, on with my day. Or I can look at it and I can be like, well, that's the thing I drew. And what is that providing me right now? What is there for me to see in my own life from that? Never mind whether that is divinely oriented or anything, because whatever is divinely oriented is whatever's happening in the moment. This is what's happening in the moment. What can I get from that? What can I call forward in myself from that? I find that a much more powerful place to approach this stuff. It's also totally fine to say it's a load of bullocks, and I'm not going for it. That's cool too. Okay. I'm going to talk about cost and spirituality, but first, let's go to our LinkedIn correspondent, Adam Quiney. You've been on LinkedIn lately. What's going on there, Adam? How are people trying to sell to you today? What are the new sneaky ways of tricking you into working with them? So I say trick because it's fucking dumb. That's a opinion, but it is kind of dumb because what these people are doing. Well, I'm going to read. Let's read what's happening. The new approaches that I'm seeing, and then we'll talk about why it's effing dumb. So I got a LinkedIn message, from someone, Jason Liang. I'm calling this person by name because they are spammers. And their byline says, need help writing, publishing, or marketing your book to launch or grow your business? We can help. So nothing wrong with putting that in your title. We all have something in our LinkedIn title that suggests like something we can help you do. But anytime I get a message from people like this, I'm usually a little nervous, a little cockeyed, perhaps a tad skeptic that they might try to pitch me very quickly, which is always such a letdown. Get on their glasses. Because I enjoy talking to people. And so it's sad for me when I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? And then they're like, would you like to buy stuff from me? And so this person says, hey, Adam, ! Jaunty. I like it. This guy has me already. I am on board. Hey, Adam. Heck yes. Very good energy. Okay, let's see what happens next. I wanted to introduce you to someone in my network who I believe could be a valuable connection for you. I've never once talked to this person, Jason. Very first message we've ever had. Interesting. It'd be like if I walked up to someone at a bus stop and was like, hey, Jim. I assume your name is Jim. Hey, Jim. I gotta have the exclamation mark. I would like to introduce you to someone in my network who I think would be valuable. Like, what? And then, I just noticed this too. Her name is Jeff Colley. What? Her name is Jeff Colley. So I didn't even notice that the first time they sent this, but we've obviously, that's a good hint that we're dealing with some like generic kind of just trying to get enough of these volume messages out. I think you two will benefit greatly from connecting. Jeff has a remarkable track record of assisting entrepreneurs and experts in becoming best-selling offers and significantly scaling their brands and businesses over the years. Want me to connect the two of you now? There is zero there's zero possibility created in what this person is doing. Possibility is where we have been in a conversation together, you and I, and together we're present to like something that could come into existence, or we've created that together, or something along those lines. And possibility, this is what pretty much all of these approaches to marketing wildly miss. They're just focused on numbers. And so they're trying to accelerate through this process, this part of the process. They are stepping over the part of the process where they actively create possibility by building a relationship with me. There's no effort here to build a relationship. There's basically just like, let me sell you this introduction so this person can then be a warm lead. So like, no, scram. I don't want it. I don't know what this. The message I wrote back was, hey, Jason, I'm actively looking to not be introduced to people like Jeff. Can you please let him know that there's no fish for him in this pond? Thanks, bud. So sarcastic. If you want to, if you're curious, if you're like, Adam seems really like open-hearted and grounded, and like he puts a lot of effort into holding people generously. You might have zero experience me of that way, and that's fine too. But if you feel that way and you're like, but I wonder what's the part of him that I feel like there might be a bit of him that's kind of dickish. What's that part like? Try to pitch me immediately on LinkedIn and you will get a taste of the dickishness. So anyhow, Jason, what up? Goodbye. And then that was October 22nd. And then when did this come through? Wednesday. What was Wednesday? October 29th. So a week later, I get a message from Michael Recto. Partnership strategy and development expert. Okay, different name. Hey, Adam! Exclamation mark. I wanted to introduce you to someone in my network who I believe could be a valuable connection for you. Oh, sweet. His name is Jeff Cawley. Ah, nice. Got that part fixed. Well done, you guys. Crack team on this marketing group. I think you two will benefit greatly from connecting. Jeff has a remarkable track record of assisting entrepreneurs and experts in becoming best. Blah, 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 blah. Exact same message. Literally the exact same message. And so, just to close this, I wrote, "Hi, Michael. Why is Jeff sock puppeting himself with people like you?" And then I went to Jeff. I found him on LinkedIn and I wrote, "Hi, Jeff. Why are multiple people spamming me with possible introductions to you? Here's one screenshot attached, but I've got multiple identical messages from different people. If this is some kind of marketing campaign, it's landing fairly tackily over here." So this, let's have a sip of coffee. Let's get charged up. Let's get revved. So ontologically, what is happening here? Well, actually, before we get into the ontology of it, no, let's get into the ontology, but let's approach it from a bit of a different way. The ontology of like sales, of creating business, of building relationship, the ontology of that is one of creating some kind of relationship. And the how would we put it? Like the scale or the product that you sell and in a service-based profession in particular, it's like the level to which your product requires someone to really lean in, the level to which it requires trust, the level to which you are selling, like what's the cost, requires that you do more work to build trust and build relationship. Like if you're selling me a windowsill, I want a little bit of trust in you that you're not going to just swindle me. But our society mostly provides that, right? We have a system to compensate and to deal with bad actors that way. Okay. So that trust is kind of given. That's just alive, at least in North America. If I was in maybe Zimbabwe or Nigeria or somewhere that has a lot of corruption, that trust might also have to be earned. But here in the West, not so much. We're very fortunate that way. Truly very fortunate. But if this person is trying to sell me like counseling, that's a higher level of trust. Now, counseling doesn't have a commitment, and it's generally, you just pay by the session as you go. And as a result, the commitment you're making is about $200 in an hour of your time. That's what's required for a counseling session to start to develop trust. So that's a low barrier to entry trust-wise, right? Most of us, we'll be a little vulnerable, a little nervous. It might take us some courage to get into that conversation, but we can handle, you know what, that counselor sucked and I'm not going to go that route. And we feel enough pain to warrant doing that. Like we'll feel enough like things aren't working that we're willing to cross over the line and make that act of trust. For something like what I do, high degree of trust, right? I'm inviting you to really spend a year of your life in deep relationship with me. I'm inviting you to invest a lot of money in the promise of what's possible if you transform your life. That's high level of trust. And so I can't just throw stuff at you. When people want to sell me lead generation, they're like, yeah, what we do is we have this funnel. We give people like your little pamphlet that then builds relationship and then this and then that. And then you'll get so many leads coming in, you won't know what to do with it. And not a single one of those leads typically really converts because no trust has been built. And I could, of course, slowly build that trust. Those leads are people I can talk to, but so ontologically, selling in general is an act of building trust and relationship with people, showing them value, providing them service until you get to the point where it's clear to you and then eventually to them that the best way you can continue to serve them is to support them to get into a committed relationship with you. And then that's the conversation to have. And then they either choose out or they choose in. None of that is present here. What is happening here is that these people are trying to short circuit relationship and trust. They're trying to create a facsimile of it, a simulacrum. Here's one more cool sounding words. It is an ersatz form of trust, which is to say it looks kind of like it, but it's not. It's some shitty fake version of it. This is the knockoff, you bought it on Temu type of trust that these people are selling. They're using the illusion of like referral, word of mouth. Hey, I wanted to introduce you to someone in my network. That's a proximity. That's sort of like, hey, check it out, word of mouth. but there's no trust established whatsoever. And then, there's this sense of numbers game. And then there's the fact that it's just very like hashed together. Let's just put a bunch of this stuff. Let's fire it over to this guy's desk. So, one, don't do this. This is garbage. It doesn't work. And this is just one more in the it's one more sort of weak attempt to we could call like industrialize or scale, making a lot of introductions. And you can't really build relationship at scale this way. You can build relationship at scale through stuff like Tony Robbins, where there's a lot of service and he has a lot of brand recognition. And so therefore, people will come in, all of that. But this sort of thing doesn't work at all. What's the second? I had one more. Oh, yeah. The second is also like a bit of a sneak attack. So this person, they're saying, Adam, LinkedIn gods keep recommending you, and I think we should listen. I'm actually looking to help experts create real connections in my network and looking for speakers for my top 1% podcast. Okay. Your top 1% podcast. No charge, but there's a criteria to keep our meetings top notch should we connect. So I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's connect. And I also give them a warning right out of the gate. Happy to be in a relationship. One of my favorite things to do is bring sarcasm to people, pitching me within 2 days of us making a connection on LinkedIn. Let's aim not to do that, smiley face. Tell me about your criteria. And so he hosts a podcast focused on entrepreneurship. Given your background in coaching, I believe your expertise aligns well with the interests of my audience. Could you share more about your work? Who do you serve? What do you help your clients achieve? I'd love to explore whether your offerings would be a good fit for my listeners. Okay. Sounds good so far, right? And so I sent this guy a VM, a couple of VMs describing what I do, all of that. This guy thanks me for that. And then he says, let's line up a time to chat further and explore fit. I'd love to invite you to a small group call. That's the first moment where I'm like, I thought we were going down this path. And now we're going down this path. During the call, we'll have a chance to get to know each other better and see if your communication style and expertise aligns with my show's audience. These sessions have been incredibly valuable and everyone walks away with great insights, no cost, no pressure, just meaningful connections. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. Why would I be on a group call? And then he says, also a quick question. Do you typically work with clients one-on-one or is your coaching more group-based? That's a number one warning question for me as an aside. That does not mean that this person is doing something skeezy, but anytime I see that question, the other version of it is, hey, I'm just curious, do you have room in your practice for more clients? The reason that marketers typically ask that question is because then you say, yeah, thinking they're like, oh, great, because I'm actually looking for a coach. And they're like, great, because I could help you fill that space. Oh, yeah. And so this guy, I said, sorry, I don't have a lot of time on my calendar for group calls and networking. Happy to schedule something if you'd like to chat one-on-one. He said, well, I don't have space in my calendar for one-on-one meetups, so we keep things in smaller, large group formats. It's scalable, tends to be more valuable for everyone involved. Great. Here's how the call typically runs. We start with quick intros. What do you do? Your superpower, what you need more of. If your offer and style fit, I book you as a guest on the podcast. I'm especially looking for folks that have scaled group coaching programs. Sometimes people realize they need something different and I offer coaching if it's appropriate. If I'm not the right fit, I'll connect you with someone in my network who is. It's fast-paced, collaborative, and we've had great feedback. That's no pressure at all. So this guy I find very reasonable. He's clear on what he wants to put forward and his explanation of it. And this smells to me like a secret pitch. And that may or may not be at all his intention. He may genuinely be like, here's how I scale. I invite people that are up to something into these group calls. We talk, we hear about what they're each up to, and then we connect them with the people and they go on their way. To me, that's the kind of networking that is not very interesting to me. I'm not saying it's wrong. And I'm not saying that what I like is what's right. I'm saying that for me, I've come to this awareness in the years I've been doing this, that what I'm interested in is dropping in on one-on-one calls with people and spending some time getting to know them, learning about them, and then growing from that place. And so, this would basically be like, I get on the call, I'm going to talk. He's possibly going to offer coaching. That's weird because that wasn't part of the original offer. And if he's not the right fit, he'll connect me with someone in his network who is. Okay, but then do I get to have a one-on-one call with that person, or is that person got another group call that I'm joining part of? So all of this stuff, there's something about this approach that feels a little bit like bait and switchy, like, hey, are you interested in being my podcast? But actually maybe not. And let's get you on this group call. And I might offer coaching if it's appropriate. And it's just like, see you later. Goodbye. So anyhow, these are the latest and greatest approaches I'm noticing on LinkedIn to attempt to sell stuff. And, I don't have a problem with people wanting to do this. I hope it works really well for them. Chris, this dude that I just recently spoke about, seems really empowered around it. Peace be with you. For me, I have zero interest in that. And so there's a power in us recognizing, knowing, hey, what works for us? And is it generating what we're wanting generating? Like one question I have to ask myself when I say what I like doing networking wise is like meeting people one-on-one, dropping in on calls, hearing what they're up to, grabbing lunch together, talking on the phone, exploring the things they're creating, sharing what I'm creating. I like doing that. Is that sufficient to generate the results I say I'm committed to? So I can't just rest on my laurels. This is what often happens. We're morphing a little bit our topic now. We're sort of talking about like achieving our results, being fluid, and being true to ourselves, allowing all three of those things to happen. Because what I see a lot in coaches is kind of a unwillingness to step beyond what's comfortable for them and do what is required to generate the results they say they are committed to. They claim. So they're sort of like, I'm committed to creating 10 clients this month. Okay, great. So that's going to require a bit of action. Yeah, but I don't want to. And then there's like this large criteria of what they are willing to do and what they are not willing to do. So the criteria would be like, but I'm not willing to get up. I'm not willing to sacrifice on my well-being. So I'm not going to start taking a call until 11. And it's really important that blah, blah, blah. And I've got this and I've got that. And I don't like doing that. And I feel stressed out. And if I reach out to a person twice in a day, then I feel bad. So I need to take an extra day. Totally fine. But we have to pause and we have to look at, okay, I've gotten clear on what I'm willing to do. I've gotten clear on the thing I say I'm committed to. Are these two reconciling? Are they lining up? Or am I going to have to make some changes? Am I going to have to reduce the thing I say I'm committed to? It seems like I'm not willing to do the action that is necessary for that. So do I have to bring that down? Or do I have to take a look at this and say, you know what? I'm saying that I want to create 100 clients in a month, and there's no way I can scale one-on-one meetings with people out that way. That's not going to work. Okay, I got to find something different to do. So we can't just sit in our righteousness. And sorry, I shouldn't say we. I can't just sit in my righteousness. I have to, when I make this decision for someone like Chris and say, yeah, no, I don't think that doesn't vibe with me. I then have to check my feet and I have to say, okay, but is what you're doing working? And the way I've set my business up is like 6 to 10 clients is a full client load. So I'm not scaling out big numbers. I'm not trying to create 6 million clients in my practice. I'm not trying to create 40 leads in a month. I'm clear that I work with people deeply and I work with people for a long period of time, and it's a high level commitment. And from that, we can create the kind of transformation I'm committed to and that they're committed to. And it meets us in that kind of approach to meeting with people. So we need to know what we're committed to, and we need to actually check our feet along the way and make sure, hey, am I doing the stuff that's necessary to create the result that I say I'm committed to? Fortunately, and with great delight, I can say that the stuff that Chris and that Jeff Colley are doing are not a part of my journey. Okay, well, I think I sufficiently tore LinkedIn to pieces. Let's talk about costs, and we can also spin this up into spirituality and addictions. So earlier I talked about Toko and I have this friendship because he was willing to stand for our relationship to be ongoing. He was willing to say, Adam, I want to be a friend of yours. I want us to talk regularly. When can we make that happen? And then he was willing to say, can we put something on the calendar? And to text me if I forgot. Generally, once it's on my calendar, I'm good. But like, these are all examples of things Toku was willing to do. And each of those things has an energetic cost to them. It's not free to tell someone, I want to hang out with you. The moment you, if you have ever tried to ask a beautiful woman or a handsome man or a stunning non-gendered individual, I don't know what the appropriate, sexy, I don't know what the adjective is, and I don't care. Either way, if you've ever tried to ask someone out on a date, you know there's a cost to that energetically. You feel it in your body. And that cost is sort of like the energy that you have to hold, the act of courage you have to do, the risk, the vulnerability, the risk you put yourself up against, that they may say no, and you may feel something as a result of them saying no to you, and you might create all of that. So there's always a cost every time we do something. And one of my teachers, she and I were talking about addiction, and she trains in like the Yahe tradition of ayahuasca. This is the Colombian tradition of the medicine. And it's much larger than just drinking ayahuasca. There's a whole, like a lot of teachings in this lineage. And she was sharing, we were talking about marijuana, because we both had had a lot of, that had been a very challenging addiction for us, marijuana. Not the thing that's tough about marijuana, at least that I found tough, is it's not physiologically addictive in the sense that you get like delirium tremens if you don't smoke pot. I could always spend a day not getting stoned. I could always spend 2 days or white knuckle through a month, but I would always find a way to pick it back up. There's a real habit forming nature to it. And the game for me became like, well, yeah, I could stop smoking weed, but it's kind of fun doing stuff when I'm baked. And, you know, I'm just doing chores anyhow, so why not get baked for those? And then, yeah, you know, I'm going to go to the gym, but why not get baked for that? Then the gym will be more interesting. And then it just becomes like, well, why don't I just +1? You know, if I'm +1ing when I get stoned, why not just +1 everything? And then that becomes your baseline. So it's very, it's like coffee in that way, almost innocuously slippery and sticky. So she and I were talking about pot, and we got to talking about addictions, and she was saying, you know, in the indigenous lineage, they talk about this idea that everything has a spirit to it, like an energy. There's an energy behind everything. And she was saying that the spirit of addiction works kind of like this. In the world, there is always an energetic exchange. There is a cost to everything, You know, if I want X, then I must pay the cost. If I want to date the beautiful woman, then I must be willing to pay the cost of feeling rejected, of all of the energy in my body, of the way I feel over the next week. I have to pay that cost. You could go really crass with this, be like, if you want the Nintendo, you must go and pay the cost. The money is the cost. So everything in life, there's an exchange. We're constantly exchanging value, and that's the cost. And we exchange that value literally with money and stuff like that, and exchange for our labor and all of that. But we also exchange costs energetically, which is like I was describing, you know, the feeling in my body, all of that. She was saying the spirit of addiction, the way they hold it, is that it provides you something without a cost. That's the idea you get behind it. Like, you get to feel, you smoke this weed and everything feels super interesting and really good and really sensual. And you don't have to pay any kind of cost for that. You don't have to, you know, fast for 3 days to discover how delicious bread tastes. You don't have to, you know, work out really hard to then discover how nice it feels to stretch and lay in your bed. You don't have to pay any of the cost. That's the nature of an addiction. And therefore, what it does is it extracts the cost from you indirectly, through the addiction. You could lose yourself in that. There's a lot of depth in that concept. What I notice is that more and more what we see are, we are becoming less willing to pay the cost for things. We're not willing to pay the cost for the shirt, the clothes that we wear. we're not really willing to pay the cost even of like empathetic pain, suffering. We're not willing to pay the cost of going and asking someone out. So then we have like incels and we have people doing horrible things, you know? So this cost is inherent and it's imbued. And the more we are willing to pay the cost, the more we are willing to lean into this energetic payment in our life, the more it comes back to us. What happens is instead we slowly and surely jealously guard all of this stuff, and our focus moves to what is it going to cost me? So this, first of all, to close the loop on Toku, right? Toku is willing to pay the cost, and the benefit of that is that we have a friendship that has lasted 10 years, and I have a beta copy of the Coach's Tarot. Most people are not willing to pay that cost. Many, many, many people reach out to me and they say, I really value your time. Great, don't do that. I will value my time. You don't have to worry about my time. You can waste my time. I'll tell you if you're doing that. But they say, I really value your time. I'd really love some support. Awesome. And I'm like, great, here's the thing. And they're like, amazing. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. And I say, reach out anytime. I'm happy to support you. Then what happens is they're like, I absolutely will do that. And then I never hear from them again. So there's a couple, there's a couple things at play here. A couple of things at play. Hello, Mrs. Doubtfire. He's got impressions and they're 2 out of 10, but he's doing them anyhow. He's having fun. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So first thing that might be happening is they're lying to me and saying, yeah, that was really great. And they're thinking that guy sucked. I did not enjoy that conversation. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel gotten. And, you know, I'm just going to be polite and get off the phone. That will happen sometimes. Not because I'm intentionally a dickhead, but just because I'm not everyone's flavor of ice cream. And for some people, it's just going to go that way. I'm not going to try to be perfect. I do my best and I'm continually honing my blade and getting better and better at creating art with people. But I'm a human. I'm not God. And so I won't always create the perfect experience. So that's that. So that we will take that, you know, we're not going to pretend that that's not there. Sometimes that's the case. But lots of times I'm going to trust that those people genuinely did get value and genuinely would like to reach out. But what is happening is they're not willing to pay the cost. And the cost in this instance is that they are going to have to be willing to reach out to me and have me ignore them, or have me say, I actually don't have time for this, or just be with their internal dialogue of, I'm taking advantage of Adam because I'm not paying him anything and I'm asking him for more support. And that is the cost that becomes too great for them to bear. And as a result, our relationship falters and falls away. So, you know, a lot of people often ask, who are the clients you tend to start? Like, who do you really tend to work with? It's the people that are willing to pay the cost. And the cost doesn't mean 50 grand and a year of your life. It means being willing to lean into that energetic cost of saying, can we have one more conversation? And it's really fascinating how we get stuck in all of those places. There was one other thing I wanted to say about this. This starts to come to one of Svetlana's questions, which is, when do we complete with a coach? How do we know when we should complete with a coach? The answer to that question is, check, is the coach you're working with me? If not, complete with them. The end. You're hilarious, Adam. That's hilarious. So what happens in coaching is that it's not a miracle in the sense that like nothing goes wrong once you hire the coach and everything's perfect and all the conversations you have are empowering. And no, not at all. What happens is that you and the coach make a commitment to one another to forge a really powerful, intimate relationship in which to practice doing things differently than they go the rest of the time in the rest of your life, in the rest of your relationships. So what's going to happen once you've made that commitment is that instead of it going the way I just described, it's going to go the way it always goes for you. So typically what happens is over time, we build up resentments around our coach because they're just another human and they're doing a lot of work, hopefully, to manage themselves and to get supported and to be able to show up clear and shiny for you, meaning they're not putting their own opinion on you. They're not pushing a lot of themselves into the space. They're responsible for what's going on over here so they can keep that out of the space. They're responsible for what's going on over here so they can get supported with that so that it doesn't come out indirect, all of that stuff. And we're going to have stuff come up. And so usually the first thing to do when we start to run around with that question, when do I complete with a coach? A really good question I like to offer people is, what's the thing that you are currently unwilling to bring forward to talk about with your coach? You know, like if we looked at that question as an opportunity to deepen yourself into more intimacy, what is the intimacy to bring into the relationship with a coach? So sometimes people will sort of feel like, oh, I'm not getting what I want from my coach, and maybe it's time for me to jump ship and come over with you, Adam, because I get a sense I'll get more of what I want. Cool. And I almost always want to first invite them to bring that to their coach. And as you can tell, that's going to be edgy. As soon as we bring that forward, who's to know what'll happen? We're going to feel awkward. We're going to feel bad. Maybe I'm making my coach feel bad. Maybe blah, blah, blah. And now we're back to the cost we must pay for intimacy. The cost we have to pay for intimacy is that it means people can respond to what we are bringing in its truth, instead of them responding to what we were bringing from a place of falsity, right? Yeah, everything's great. I'm really happy. Yeah, this is good. It's all perfect. And then people don't respond to our truth. They respond to some artifice that we're putting forward. There was a point I wanted to make here. Let's drink some coffee and see if it comes back. Here's another example of where we're not really willing to pay costs. Is we demand authenticity. We are like, I want to be authentic. I want to tell people how I feel. I want to share myself. And then we share ourselves and someone says, shut up, or that's annoying, or they express their own opinion about it. And then we get mad at them for not being willing to be with our authenticity. Actually, what's happening is we're unwilling to pay the cost or a life lived from authenticity, which is a willingness to hear other people's authentic response to our authentic output. If I go into the world and start walking around naked because that's who I am, and then people start making fun of me for my moles and my penis and whatever else, all the other weird stuff on my body, and I go, they're not willing to just accept me for who I am, that's not actually their job. Their job, if I'm going to be authentic, their job's to be authentic. And if the whole world is just accepting you for who you are without any further ado about it, that's not very authentic, because that's not how humans are. We're continually accepting some people and rejecting, by and large, almost everyone. Like, how often do you accept you for who you are? I will bet you good money that it's not a 24-hour a day kind of thing, you know? And so we are expecting other people to show up differently than we are willing to show up in our own lives. And again, not willing to pay the cost. So coming back to coaches, when to complete, the first thing is, what's the intimate thing for me to start bringing? What's the conversation for me to bring to my coach? I've had a few people reach out that were like, you know, I've been working with this coach, blah, blah, blah. And I give them this. And then they come back and they're like, you know, thank you so much. And it's really created some real powerful conversations with my coach. And I think we're going to stick together for a little while. And I'm like, awesome. That's amazing. Because that thing that was happening with them and their existing coach, it was going to get recreated over here anyhow. So that stand I'm taking for them to build the intimacy over there with their coach that's the same stand I would be if they started working with me. I'm giving them the gift of my stand for relationship and their own work before they've started working with me, even if it means it's going to cost me, the client, so to speak. And that's what it is to be a coach, is that we stand for people before they hire us with the sober awareness that means often people won't hire us. That's what it is to really stand for someone. The other time, you know, completing with your coach, when do you complete with your coach? I think it's really powerful to, I like to work with my people for an amount of time, an agreement, as opposed to month, for a few reasons. One, it puts a timeline on the horizon, and it invites us to really check in, you know, at 6 months or at a year, like, hey, how has this gone? You know, what's up? How's it going? as opposed to month, there's never really a set endpoint. So it goes on further and further. There's never really any point where we have to stop and say, how's it going? Usually what happens instead is we go month to month, they start to build some dissatisfaction or resentment, and eventually they're like, well, I'm giving my notice. And then that's that. I think month to month is more, it requires less commitment from us, and therefore it requires less cost. And to be honest, I also, in alignment with things, costs, paying the cost, benefiting us, I think it's less powerful. That's just me. So I like to, how much longer is there in my agreement? Okay, I'm starting to think about completing. I'm going to bring that forward to my coach. Hey, I notice I'm starting to think about completing. And if you're unwilling to bring this stuff to your coach, this is sort of like the nuclear option. If you're unwilling to bring forward to your coach that thing that is intimate and in the space, then it's time to complete with your coach, because that's a place where the relationship is sullied, so to speak. You're not really willing to show up fully and like fully trust your coach and the relationship because there's something you're hiding from them. That it is time to complete. The nature of the work coaching is powerful because we're willing to bring anything to our coach, and they can hold that. So once that stops being the case, either because you're not willing to bring something forward or you don't feel your coach can hold it, and you're not willing to bring to the conversation, I am not sharing something with you because I don't feel you can hold it, time to move on. Okay. What do we have? We got 18 minutes left. Okay, what do I want to talk about? Svetlana asks, can you talk about, when and how do we bring up the energy when in the room when it's off? So this is like what Svetlana is asking about is kind of the essence of ontological leadership. So when I began this work, my background was project management from a software background, and then law. So I was very, very expert at making shit happen, moving the ball down the field. And, relative to, I guess we could say maybe a lot of software developers and engineers, I had soft skills, but really what I was really good at doing is like, okay, you're having some feelings, got it, but we need to move the thing down the road. So let's move the thing down the road. And so let's come back to, so I was pretty good. I think the way I would describe it is I was pretty good at placating people having an experience that didn't feel aligned with moving the ball down the field. Here's what we have to do. You're being weird. This is my internal story. You're being weird, or you're having some sort of emotions, whatever. Here's the thing I need to say to sort of pat you on the head, or there, there. And then great. Now we can come back to this, and you sort of you get placated sufficient that you're able to like acknowledge, like to get back into the conversation with us about how to take the next steps, but nothing's been resolved for you. And so that's how I came into this work. And once I started leading, I learned how to coach, I learned how to train, I practiced coaching, I practiced all of this stuff, but it wasn't until I came back and began to lead with the program that I'd gone through that I started to notice this stuff showing up more in terms of my leadership. When I was training just the coaching side of ontology, it was like, okay, one-on-one, that doesn't show up as much. I'm here with the client. There's no agenda. There's nothing we have to make there's nothing we have to make happen aside from what the client is bringing. But once I was now leading teams and working with them ontologically, now there was more going on because there was an agenda collectively that we'd agreed on. Hey, as a team, we agree that we're going to move through this timeline by the end of the weekend. Or as a team, we agree that we need to get 12 of our participants, they need to coach this weekend. We have a goal that we're working towards. We have an agenda other than just what each person individually is bringing to the space. And so what that did was it drove up all of my project management and lawyer kind of like get it done-ness. And what would happen is people would be people would be practicing and doing things far, far, far out of their comfort zone. And what that means is people would be, one, scared. If you get far enough down, people were scared. Insert whatever type of fear you want, like, oh, they were afraid of looking as an imposter. Oh, but Adam, maybe they were afraid of dying, or actually they were, yes. Ultimately, all of that stuff and whatever variety we want to fill in, but that's not really the point. The point is ultimately they were afraid. And then layered on top of their fear is whatever coping strategy they've learned to use in life unconsciously to overcome their fear and do what they have to do to then get back to a state of familiarity and comfort. So I am grossly abstracting or generalizing. Generalizing. That is a hard word. Let's get some tea in my mouth. Pouring some tea in my mouth. Little Paris at night. That's right. You get to hear the tea getting poured. What a fun time. All right. There you go. There you go. All right. So I'm intentionally generalizing this because the content, the specifics of the fear is not really that interesting or important. It makes us sound like we have something to add to the conversation, but it's not really where the conversation is best served. So they are afraid because we are leaning into the unknown. They're out of their comfort zone. They're on the skinny branches. E.g., someone might have had as part of their responsibility, we have a graduation dinner coming up. We have a very intentionally limited budget. We are going to have 24 people, and your job is to enroll, meaning get a restaurant on board with serving us a 3-course meal along with wine, an AV setup so that we can use a microphone, and for that to cost no more than $50 per person. That's a big ask. If you try doing that, like, hey, we got, actually it was probably more than 24, often around like 50 or something, like a lot of people. If you are going about asking restaurants for that, especially around Christmas time, that's a big ask. So that's very confronting for people because they're like, well, I don't want to have to be needy, or I don't want to have to appear like this greedy guts who's not willing to pay their way. Or maybe they learned to not have to be in this situation by making a bunch of money because then they didn't have to feel desperate and needy, which this project is then driving them to feel. Blah, 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 blah. So what would happen is we'd have these people in these states and we are collectively moving towards making it happen. And I would feel like, okay, great. Yeah, I totally got it. You're feeling sad. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, now what are you going to do to do what's next? And my leaders infuriatingly would be like, well, hold on, Adam, what are you just going to step over that? And so they would keep inviting me to notice that my tendency was always to put my attention and our attention back to like the logistics, the cells of the spreadsheet. And so initially, I wasn't even aware of these people's feelings other than like a cursory, like, oh yeah, sadness. Okay, I just got to tap that person on the head and we'll be good. So my learning process was initially that people would be like, yo, Adam, you gonna address that? You're just going to step over it. And when they would ask me that question, I would respond, well, we got to do this and we've only got a half hour left and we got to get shit happening and we got to blah, 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 blah. So I would have very good reasons why not address that thing and why it wasn't really worth occupying much of my consciousness. So the initial work for me was just having this reflected by someone else who was deeper in their work so I could actually catch it. And then once you start asking me that question, guess what happens to me? I'm afraid and I'm out of my comfort zone because now if I'm going to address this, we're not going to get the thing done. And I don't like the way that makes me feel and it's confronting for me. And so when I'm confronted, what do? I double down even more on efficiency and getting stuff happening. So now what's happening at this stage of the game is I'm sort of like begrudgingly addressing your dumb emotions. It's my internal story. With an urgency about me and a need for us to get through them. But I guess I'll take time to soften here so I can hear you. And that doesn't work at all. It goes exactly the way you can imagine it would. And so this is the reason that so much stuff gets stepped over in leadership. And what was happening was that I was unwilling to create the breakdown. The breakdown being that I would slow down and actually be with the emotions that are getting driven up to the surface so that people could resolve that stuff. So I could support them to move through it so that then we could operate as an efficient team. The breakdown was if I did that, we're not going to have enough time to make this happen. And then we're going to fail. And then I'm going to look like a crappy leader. And then. And so the hard work of this is, people are like, how do you learn, to do this efficiently? You do it inefficiently. And so I would take swings, I would slow down. I would support people with the feelings. We'd finish and we'd be like all done. And I would be like, oh man, that was amazing. I crushed it. I coached them. I supported them. I actually opened my heart to them. And then the person leading me would be like, okay, Adam, you got a minute left. What are you going to do to get this handled? And what that would trigger me was like, fuck you, guy. You just told me not to step over the thing. I did what you asked. And now you're asking me what I'm going to get done in a minute. Thank you very much. I'm not going to get anything done in a minute because I did the thing you told me to do. Righteous resentment, annoyance, how could you, indignance. And what they were doing was they were standing for the possibility that I, as a leader, could take time to help people move through what was ever showing up for them ontologically and move the conversation forward so that we could actually logistically get things done. The way that their stand for me occurred internally was like they were unreasonable and they didn't care at all about me and that they were putting this on me. They were imposing on me and blah, 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 blah. And, what I will tell you from here is thank God for their willingness to stand for me that way, because I did not make it very rewarding for them. I was resentful and indignant and annoyed. But from that stand, what I learned how to do was calibrate, working with the energy in the room, distinguishing the energy in the room, and moving the group forward in terms of logistics and timeline. And so the way we learn to do this is always by getting on that bike and falling off the bike. That is always, always, always the way we gain the wisdom to be able to feel into the space in the moment. So how this plays out, if you really want to become masterful in this work, one, you got to have someone's hand on your shoulder. This isn't something you can operationalize from watching my videos or going to a webinar or learning about spiral dynamics or whatever. And you don't have to do this. It's more efficient to just bulldoze people. I can speak from experience. As a PM and a lawyer, I was very good at bulldozing people. It never changes culture. It never creates transformation. Maybe 99.99% of the time it doesn't. What it does is it just bulldozes people. It creates results at the expense of people's underlying experience. That might be what people want. And in the short term, sometimes that's what's necessary. Like if you have an earthquake happening and you need to get food from A to B, it doesn't matter how people are feeling in the moment. That food needs to be gotten there. So there is a time and a place for that approach. It's just not a transformational approach. And so whilst we can honor that time and place exists, that's not really what a transformational leader is committed to doing. And so we have to get someone's hand on our shoulder, someone who can hold us and support us through this, stand for us this way, and then ask these annoying questions, have us confronted in the moment, and someone that's willing for us to turn around and be like, fuck you, guy. Hey, guy, fuck you, guy. Canadians in South Park get annoyed with us for the very thing that they've said that they want support with. That's what it is to stand for someone transformationally, is to be willing to catch that energy from them, knowing it's not personal, it's just their process. And you are willingly receiving that process, then going to your coach, moving it through, getting it clear, coming back, holding them with grace and love until eventually they come out on the other side. And on the other side, suddenly they're leading groups and people are like, hey, how is it that I can feel you work with the energy to a point and then you move on, you get back to logistics. Like, how do you know where that line is? Because they got on the bike and they fell off. So that's how we practice with this. Okay. I got like a million topics here and I touched on like 3 of them. I went deep on the LinkedIn stuff. I had something to move through clearly. Let's see. A few quick plugs and a few requests. So plug the retreats coming up. it's nice. I'm talking to a number of people. I'm having conversations about the possibility of like what might be available for you if you come. And that's the place I would invite you to reach out to me from. Is like, hey, I'd like to explore what might be available to me if I went on this retreat. That's a super fun conversation for you and I to be in, and it has no strings attached. All that conversation does is it gets you excited about what's possible in your life, including hanging out with me for a week in Costa Rica. Hell yeah. So that is January 25th through the 31st. So there's a little bit of space left on my calendar that's open for people that want to have that conversation. $4,000 price tag, covers everything with the exception of you flying to and from Costa Rica. The shuttle, the food, the room, the work that we'll do, the excursions we'll take, all of that is handled. So great deal. If you're looking to like really start this new year off with a bang, this is an event that will, I promise you, change your life. You will come home and you'll be like, holy mackerel, you will see the world differently. You will have a different experience standing in the airport waiting for your plane than the one you were used to having. So that's really awesome. Check that out. We also do free public Forge calls. So if you're sort of like, I kind of want to, I want more of this conversation, but maybe one step further, maybe a little more interaction, you can go to evergrowthcoaching.com/the-forge-public-calls. Let me put this comment here. And then this doesn't post anywhere, I think. It goes to YouTube. Okay. Well, I'm just going to read it to you anyhow. evergrowthcoaching.com/the-forge-public-calls. You can also find it off of my website or off of the Evergrowth Coaching website, I believe. Those happen once a month. We just had our last call. It was a great one. And so that's a great way. You can register for that. We send out a recording. If you're a coach and you want CCEs, you can pay a little bit more money and then you get credits for that. Yes, you don't have to attend something boring to keep your continuing coach education up. So those are two things that are on offer right now. And then a request. I love getting topic suggestions from people. And my favorite is often, you know, if you want to really make it easy, you can just post a comment in any of the places I put this, or you can message me directly. And like, what's bothering you about leadership? What's annoying? What's perplexing about leadership? What are the hard questions you have? What are the questions that you wonder about or you Google about or that you'd be inclined to ask ChatGPT? Send them to me. Because if you do that, then we can explore them together. We can look at them ontologically. We can look below the hood and see what's really going on. And that's super, super fun. Okay, well, we're going to start to wind down there. I have a very important afternoon set up with haircutto, followed by pickleball, followed by going to the gym. And then, I don't know, then I'll probably sit on the couch with my dog. I'm watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine right now, which, last topic, it's taking me 4 different attempts to watch this show because the first season, and this is true for all of my favorite Star Treks, I'm a huge Trekkie. I love Next Generation. I love Voyager. Deep Space Nine is right as they were transitioning from like 4:3 television into widescreen. And right as they were transitioning from like low budget shows to like really good, you know, like before Mad Men, before Sopranos, you know, before these marquee shows came in. So 1, it takes some getting used to the ugliness of it. 2, the characters at the start are friggin' annoying. And so and 3, the writing at the start is also pretty dumb, much like early season 1 Next Gen. And so I've always kind of put it on and then immediately been like, this show is garbage and turn it off. But I've made it through the gate. I've gotten through season 1 and I'm actually finding myself quite intrigued and delighted by like the plot lines. The characters are actually starting to become more interesting to me. And so I got to share with you, I am so enjoying having a new old era Star Trek show to watch that I don't know all of the plot lines to. Like I watch Next Gen all the time and I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm like, this is cool. This is the part where the time thing does the time thing and then it's all crazy and it's timey-wimey. I got a new thing that I'm watching and I'm like, what's going on over here? And Tommy's with me, right? Trekkie and Yes for Early DS9. So it's a delight. I'm very much enjoying that. So I'm going to plug that too. If you are a Trekkie and if you've struggled to get through Deep Space Nine, I recommend watching it beyond season 1. Make it through season 1. Plug into season 2 if you have to. Starts to get really, really cool. Okay. You're welcome, Fox or whoever sponsors Star Trek. That's my plug for you. Have a fantastic weekend. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for tuning in, Tommy. Thanks for tuning in, Vera. Thanks everyone else who dropped in and did not say hi. But we got like, how many? We got 3 thumbs up and 2 hearts. So we're doing pretty good. I'm going to take that with me into the weekend. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.